Hey, buddy. Welcome back, everyone. Today I'm going to be going over the 5 sci-fi books and series that I'm most excited to get into this year. And if you have watched my tier list of me ranking every single sci-fi fantasy series I've ever read in my entire life, you'll know that I was surprised to see that I didn't have a single sci-fi book or series on that list. It surprised me so much because when I watch movies or TV, science fiction is probably the most watched genre I enjoy. So the fact that I haven't read a single sci-fi book or series really blew my mind. I also saw it as an opportunity though, because that means I have a lot of cool new worlds to explore and I had a lot to pick from. So jumping right in, the first book on this list will not surprise anyone. It's Dune, of course. If I hadn't ranked this book first on my list, I think that the marketing people for the movie and book probably would have a lot of explaining to do, because I have seen this book everywhere. I have seen Dune everywhere. What's funny is I think that I've seen more covers of Dune than any other book series, besides maybe Harry Potter. But I've seen like this super cool, like old school looking Dune cover. I've seen the movie Dune cover. They have the most beautiful cover that I have ever seen on any book, any stock book that wasn't from like some fancy bookseller on there. And then they have like the generic one of the series front covers. So if this book wasn't the first on my list, they'd have some explaining to do. I think between it being on everybody's list of must-read sci-fi novels, plus it seeming to have kind of like a fantastical element to it, really put this book at the top. Before I move on to the second book on my list, I want to make note that I don't know if Dune or any of these other books are good for beginners to sci-fi. So if they aren't, please let me know down in the comments below. And if you do know of any good entry points for beginners to sci-fi, please let me know in the comments below. They may not take any of the spots on this list, but I want to be well informed when I decide what next books I'm going to be reading. Moving on to number 2. I actually haven't heard much about this book at all. It's not like I haven't seen it highly marketed and I don't know much about it. I'm only reading this book because of the author, and that is To Sleep in a Sea of Stars by Christopher Paolini. Paolini's inheritance cycle was a huge part of me reading when I was growing up. I really enjoyed the books. When I reread, I listened to the books again when I was working as a mailman. It was way more trope heavy than I remembered. There's a lot of problems in the writing, but all in all, it was his first work. And it was a part of I am a little bit nostalgic for Christopher Paolini. So I thought it'd be really cool to see how he's changed and grown as an author. And since I'm looking to get into sci-fi anyways, I thought this was a good opportunity. Number 3 on the list is Red Rising. This is a book I have almost bought and read several times just based off the cover and the name. Yes, I do buy books off the cover. I know you're not supposed to, but I do. All the time. With that being said, I think that this is another perfect example of me not wanting to stray outside of my comfort zone. Because every time I'd pick Red Rising up, I'd read its description, and because it wasn't about like dragons and swords and wizards, it took away from the appeal for me because I was so focused on that little niche of fantasy that I was missing sci-fi books in general, but other subgenres of fantasy as well. I think this is a book that has drawn me in from the start, and now that I've been looking to get into sci-fi, it's the perfect opportunity to pick it up. I've heard amazing things about the series. I've heard that it's one of the best modern sci-fi series of all time, and once again, it looks super cool. I'm excited for it. Number 4 is a book I should have read by now, 100%. I had no excuses not to read this, considering it's basically been in my grandma's house for as long as I can remember, and that's Frankenstein. When I say for as long as I can remember, I literally mean as long as I can remember. So my grandma didn't have any fiction books besides this little pack. It was like a 4-pack of books. It was Frankenstein, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, I think, Journey to the Center of the Earth, and Time Machine. And that was it. Those were the only fiction books at her house. And I mean, I'd looked through Frankenstein, I just never read it. So the fact that this book is supposed to be one of the best science fiction books of all time, it was a pioneer of the genre, one of the first ever written. Frankenstein is definitely one of the top 5 sci-fi books I want to read this year. And last but not least, if Red Rising was the book that kept drawing me in, and yet I never pulled the trigger, Leviathan Wakes is the complete opposite. Once again, I'm going to throw the cover out there. I was drawn away from this book by its cover, not because the cover's not great. And the more I look at it, the more I'm like, wow, this cover is amazing. It's amazingly done. But it didn't have a dragon on it. I know. It's ridiculous. But the fact that this showed all the sci-fi in the cover made it so that I wasn't even interested in. But this book, I swear, it's been following me. Even before I made my tier list and was looking into the sci-fi books and looking into sci-fi books to read, I was seeing this book everywhere. I think it was in like 3 different places at the bookstore. I saw someone carrying it around the gym with them, and then I saw someone carrying it around the hospital right before I made that tier list and decided I needed to look into sci-fi books. So besides all that, I've also seen that they're making a show out of it, which if it's popular enough to make a show out of it, I thought, hey, I'll give this one a shot. This book and its series is on my list, not because I chose it, but because it chose me, okay? I want to get that straight. It chose me. And that's my list. Those are the top 5 sci-fi books and series I'm most excited for this year. Another one that was a good contender was something written by Isaac Asimov. I've seen that he's kind of like a huge figure of sci-fi. I saw his Foundation book series, and then I saw iRobot. I just thought those might be a little bit too sci-fi to jump in. I don't know. I don't know anything. Let me know if you think that's a better beginner entry than any of the 5 on this list, and I might seriously move one of his works up. Let me know in the comments below. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. It means a lot to me. Like and subscribe if you want to see more. I'll be back soon. Thanks.